Now, I bought this property and I've got a little over an acre, but some of it is rocky, so we'll say about an acre. I decided to make this in an orchard. There were no trees here, and I planted apple trees. I planted, these are almond bushes, that one there and this one here. This is an apple. Then I have an apple there, but it died, some bug got into it. Then I got a cherry bush over there. I've got another cherry bush over there at the end. And then I have 1, 2 apple trees there. I've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 plum trees, different kinds of plums.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay, now I have some pear trees over there, 3 pear trees in a row. So that's a pear, and then the other one is an apricot by the house. And then I've got a pear tree there, and then I have another apple tree, and I had a yellow delicious that died on me. So I got to replace it, and then I have another apple tree. What did you call it? Named it tree. This is a nice cherry tree. It's a dwarf. It doesn't grow very tall, but it will grow out. And that there is a cherry bush over there. This is a Honeycrisp. This is a Honeycrisp apple. Okay, and this one here is a Honeycrisp as well, I believe. I believe it's the same, Honeycrisp. Then these are pear trees. That's an apricot over there. That's a wild plum.
Great for pollination.
First time I had plums on it last year.
Nice.
And because I wasn't sure, you said, well, it could be hawthorn. But
It's amazing that your apricot has done so well, because I couldn't get them to live at my place, it seemed.
Yeah, well, I had to plant it close to the house that protects it somewhat. If there's sun, it throws the heat back.
Yep.
That's another pear tree. This is an apple tree. It's a Honeycrisp apple tree.
Yep.
And this one here, you sold me that at the same time. I don't have it here. I have it on the paper in the house.
All right.
That's okay.
So approximately how many do you have?
I got 30 trees, counting the 4 nut trees.
Yep.
We will have to take a picture of that. This here, you sold me else.
I'd have to go back and look.
Yeah, so I think it's still alive.
And what about your super tree over there?
Does it look like the buds are open?
It still looks alive. It's plenty alive. Yeah. What about this one over here?
This one here is another Honeycrisp.
That's one nice looking apple.
That's
tree.
a nice apple tree.
Yeah, I kept cutting the top out and letting the branches go out.
Yep.
That's what you can do, even though they say that they'll grow 15 feet tall, you can prune them that way.
Yeah.
And that's what I'm doing. I'm pruning them so it goes out.
Oh, it looks
doesn't
nice.
go so high.
Yeah.
So I'm more or less making dwarf trees out of them.
Do you want to show us the grapevines quickly?
And that is that tree over here. That's your mulberry tree.
Yeah.
And it's been loaded for the last few years. It's just been loaded with small mulberries. Now, as the tree gets bigger, you will see bigger mulberries.
It's quite the tree already.
Yeah.
It's nice and stocky, eh?
I'm hoping mine gets some mulberries. I think it had a few last year.
Okay, now let's go to the nut tree.
How about we go to the grapevines first?
Okay, grapevine.
Since we're back here.
All right. Okay, what I did with some of the fruit trees, they have to have so much space, but then because I don't have that much space myself, I kind of staggered them. I put one there and then one here and one there so I can have more trees.
Yep.
So you can stagger them.
You fit a lot in a small area, but it looks good. It's not crowded at all. Your almond bushes are looking really nice.
And I should tell them about the plum trees here.
Okay.
With my plum trees, these are supposed to get real high. And what I did there, I kept pruning the top out, and first when it was there, I put stakes in and I pulled the limbs down. So I made it grow out like an inverted umbrella. and you can pick the fruit easier. I still have to prune it. I'm a little late this year. But yeah, so you can make the trees go whichever way you want them to go if you prune them properly.
And where's your almonds, just to show?
This almond bush, I had a little problem with it first. I hit it with the lawnmower by accident, and a piece broke off, and so I had to kind of stick it back together. And it actually made it. It kind of grew back together.
Yep.
But I taped it together. And it's a little smaller than the other one, but it gives fruit just the same as the other one. That one is just loaded some years.
Yeah, they're getting big.
Yeah.
They're getting really big, and they're just beautiful.
They're what I believe a Russian almond. They're a little smaller than your regular almond, but it's still a good nut. And there's a certain way that what you have to do with it. You have to soak them, and because they have a little bit of a bitter taste, but if you soak them, that will draw it out, and then you dry them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Okay. Now my grapes that I've grown here, I put them on the hill and a little bit slanted, and they have protection from the eastern wind in the winter time, from the trees. Now I have to prune some of the trees a little bit so I get an earlier sun in the morning, around 11 o'clock. And then it gets full sun. The south is over there. And I've had good grapes growing on there.
Yeah, you get a lot of fruit here.
Yeah.
How many do you have again?
I've got nine. And there's different kinds of grapes. I've got the purple, the blue.
Yeah.
I was supposed to have a seedless one.
Yeah.
And a green one. I'm not sure what they're called now. I'd have to look it up.
Yeah. I like the way you trellis them. We're about to do that at our house.
This is a heavy-duty, extra strong clothesline.
Yeah.
And it doesn't rust because it has the, what do you call it, plastic around or whatever. And so you pull them nice and tight, and then I have steel stakes in between to hold it up.
Yep.
And yeah.
They look good. And you did a good job of pruning them.
Yeah, I should have pruned them when they were small, but I didn't have the stakes up yet, and they were kind of laying, so I had to kind of pull them in like that. But I think they'll be okay.
Yep, I think you're going to have a good harvest again.
Now we'll go and look at the blueberry bushes. I am planning on putting one or two grow boxes up here. I had to put some dirt there because the lot was kind of slanted. So I can put a couple of boxes up there. I want to use all my soil as much as possible. And then we have different fruit bushes here. I don't remember exactly what they are, but maybe you do.
Well, we have some haskaps
The
along the
blackberry,
front
the
here.
black
There's some-
raspberry or something. And
I think we sold you some haskaps, and
yeah,
I see you got some rhubarb there.
that's a very nice rhubarb.
It
It's
looks
a
like-
cherry rhubarb.
Looks like some currants maybe as well.
Yeah, I think so. There's a couple of currants in there.
Yeah, these
And,
are 3 haskaps. Those are...
And then we have some very nice rhubarb. It's a cherry rhubarb. It's a sweet rhubarb.
Yep.
Okay. And then we have some raspberries here. They're still small, but they're coming. And those there, they bore last year and the year before very nice big raspberries.
And
Very sweet.
There's another row of haskaps.
A little spread. Yeah.
And these are currant bushes. Now I have red currants and I have white currants. So
Which ones do you like better, the red or the white?
they're pretty well the same. The white are not quite as acidy maybe as the
I think
red
they're a
ones.
little sweeter, the white
Yeah,
ones.
yeah. And then these are the other currants. I'm not sure if that's the red and this is the white, I think.
There's... yeah.
Anyway, these are the blueberry bushes. Now, I'm in the process of getting some feed. I got to feed them. You put sulfur on it every spring. And we have a cemetery next to us here. I'll aim at it. And they have pine trees there, and I'm told I can take as many needles from there, pine needles from there off the ground as I want. And so I recover it every year with new pine needles.
Makes a good mulch.
And it's a good mulch after I feed them.
And it keeps it acidic
And
as
it
well.
keeps the grass and the weeds away. And it also keeps the moisture in the ground.
Yep.
So
How many blueberry
these
plants?
are my blueberry bushes. I've got a new one right there with the wire around it because there was a rabbit in here and he was eating the little one up. So I put a stop to that by wrapping wire around, and he's growing inside the cage.
Yeah. So you have about 8 blueberries, I think,
Yeah.
Yeah, I've got
and about
bushes. And we
10 currants, I think, at least.
well, yeah, there's 5 here and 4 there. No, there's 9, I guess.
9, but it looks like a currant in here as well.
The what?
That looks like a currant in here as well.
Yeah, that's right.
So there's about 10.
I didn't count that.
Oh, so there's even more than 10.
Yeah, there's 2 more there.
And that one's
Yeah.
a currant as well, I think.
Maybe there's 3 more.
So 3 there.
Those are my new ones.
And then he has the huge garden.
And there's more here.
Yeah.
And the greenhouse. How big is your greenhouse?
My greenhouse is 15 feet wide, and it was supposed to be 60 feet. I had an extra section there, 2 sections actually, and I couldn't put them down because it's solid rock underneath there.
Yeah.
So I had to stop where I stopped, but it's still 50 feet,
That's good.
about 50 feet by 15.
It's lots of room.
Yours is 20, isn't it, wide?
I think ours is 22 or 24 wide.
Yeah.
But you know what? If I had to redo it, I like your size.
Yeah.
And I like...
Maybe to have 2 of these than to have one big one.
Exactly. Yeah. I would prefer to have 2 of the smaller ones than to have our... It's too hard to cool and too hard to heat.
Yeah,
So
no,
it's both ends.
I'm still working on the heat aspect. I grew 70, well the year before I grew 80 tomato plants in there, different kinds, and I had a real good harvest. Lots of tomatoes, and the neighbors said they've never tasted tomatoes any better than mine. Now, I'm not registered organic, but I do grow them organically. No pesticides used and no sprays.
Yeah.
So they're very nice, the tomatoes that I grow.
Now
And I
you
grow
also
different
grow
ones.
peppers in there.
And I grew peppers in there one time too, but I was having a little problem with ants and aphids. And they are what you call dairy farmers. They grow the aphids, they keep them in the winter time in the ground and wherever the colony is. And then in the spring, when you plant certain crops that they like, they bring the aphids up and put them on the plant, and they start eating your plants. And then the ants like to stroke them, and they get a sweet nectar from the aphids. So I call them my dairy farmers that I don't like.
But then you got something natural that came in the greenhouse and helped you out a little bit.
Yes, I had
Ant lions, right?
the what?
Ant lions.
Yes, yes. But they still couldn't seem to keep the head of it.
Well, I
So-
think that they keep multiplying, and eventually they'll reach kind of like an equilibrium where they use all the ants
What
up.
do you call them again? Ant lions?
Yeah.
Yeah. And so what I do is I started the greenhouse a little later, so the ants have a chance to run around and the ant lions have a chance to hunt them.
There you go.
And if I have any pictures, I'll include, I'm trying to think, if I have any pictures of the greenhouse when it was in its
With the
glory, with everything in it. It was amazing. He grows a lot of cucumbers and
Yeah, I had
tomatoes.
I had 20 cucumber plants in the on the arbors. Maybe we should go in. By the way, I built this greenhouse kind of out of things that I caught at the garbage dump. These doors came from the garbage dump, and I picked up 7 doors and made 3 good ones.
Oh, there you go.
These 2 and then the one on the other end. Free of charge.
It's the best way.
Open them up and keep them open.
It's warm in here. So he's wired up and has all his strings ready, and he plants his tomatoes basically in the same spot every year so that it's already there. And then he uses the trellises at the back to grow his cucumbers.
Okay, I grow the English cucumbers and the pickled cucumbers. And we had a real good harvest. They grow right up to the ceiling, actually, on top of the arbors. And you get a lot of fruit. Now, the tomatoes I grew in here, last year 70 of them. And some of the plants grow, I tie them up with these free hay twine that I get from farmer. And I tied them up, and some of them grew 11 feet high. And what I do as they grow, I cut the bottom leaves off where the fruit is, and then I continue that, because you got to prune them, because if you don't, then too much goes into the leaf. All the nutrients and all the strength of the plant. So you keep pruning the plant, and you make sure you cut out the suckers. That's when you have a V, there's usually a little sucker that goes in there, and you cut those out as well.
Yep.
And that way you get lots of fruit. And
keep them focused. The tomato plants need some help being focused on
yes.
producing fruit.
yeah, and you know, the thing is, I'm still not quite finished with the greenhouse. I have the sides that I can roll up, but I've now installed 2 fans up there, but I want to hook them up to solar. I haven't done that yet. And they're from a truck, I believe, from trucks. And then I want to put another fan in this one that will suck the air from the outside in and blow it that way, and those will suck it out.
Yep.
And then in the back here, where you see those kind of windows between the 2x4s, I want to cut a piece out of there and make it into a window that I can flap this way, and the air will flow and go up in the top and mix up with the heat, with the hot air, and bring it down. And I want to do the same on that side. So, you know, and then I've been thinking, my good daughter here, she has box gardening in her greenhouse, and it just really looks well. And you can start the growth of certain plants early in February already. You might have to have a little bit of a heat in it, but there's cold plants like your cabbage, your broccoli,
Kale.
your kale.
Yep. There's lots. There's actually lots. Like,
Yeah.
I was really surprised how much can handle you could have early carrots
Yeah.
and beets and
Yeah.
all kinds of things.
And you can cover them over with row cover to protect them somewhat. So you can start growing in your greenhouse even though you haven't got it heated. You can grow stuff early on already in the year than in a garden. Okay, now we also like kale. Kale is high on vitamin C and high on iron. And so I grew some kale in the garden outside. But you know, then how do you preserve your kale for the wintertime, that you can eat it in the wintertime? Well, we've found out that what you can do is you can dehydrate them. We put a very nice vegetarian cheese on it. It's like a cream cheese, not cream cheese.
It's like a cheese sauce.
Yeah, like a cheese sauce.
Yep.
And then you dehydrate them, and they're just delicious. So I eat that for kale in the wintertime.
Yep.
And you know, there's all kinds of things you can do like that. That you can grow your crops and preserve them, like carrots you can put in a root cellar. And we also did that on the farm in Holland. There's Dutch blood in me, you know, so I got to grow something. And I enjoy it.
All right, I think we've just about cooked ourselves in here, so we'll go out.
Don't forget,
Well,
should show the biggest ant
you know, if
line.
I want a sauna, all I have to do is go in here, and I'll sweat lots. The only thing you have to do is you have to make sure that you drink lots of water. If you
Yes.
have greenhouse.
All right, Gavin wants to show some ant lions. And then we're out of here.
These are some of his bigger ones.
All right.
I can see him there. He's moving around. See him there?
So the ant lions make these little
They're like
traps,
a funnel,
basically.
like a funnel trap.
And what happens is the ants they start to walk around the outside, and
they
then
slide
they
in?
slide in, and then he appears and grabs them. Isn't he got one right here?
Well, he's got something. He's got a spider, I think, right
Now
there.
they'll eat anything. It's not just ants. Different bugs.
I
And
think he's got a spider there.
the interesting part is they'll kick the soil up the side because he's got very sandy soil to knock the insect down.
Yeah, it's fun watching them because you see all the sand flying up. It's like they're throwing it out with their rear legs or whatever.
They actually use their jaws, I think. They have these jaws that they actually hold in the bottom of these little craters, and then when something falls in, they start to knock the soil, and if he gets to the bottom, they snap shut and pull him into the ground. But
There's a big one on this side too. That one is the biggest, I think, over there.
that crater,
That crater there,
like-
look at that crater.
it's probably 3 inches wide.
So with those
It's a big
natural
one.
ant traps, you don't have to use chemicals. Mother Nature takes care of it.
That's what I found with our greenhouse being open to, you know, it's one thing I guess if you have a giant greenhouse and it's never open to the outside, but I find that we get the predators of the pests come in and take care of things.
Another thing you can do is you can companion plant. We did this on the farm in Holland. We would grow corn, grain, and we would seed
Clover.
clover in with it, so that when we harvested the grain, the clover was already up and it helped to feed the cattle. So you can grow two crops together, and that way you're not wasting your space. And you can do the same with a garden. Certain crops, of course, go together. You cannot grow two different kinds of squash because they cross-pollinate. But you can grow one squash here, and if you have another spot, you can away from that, you can grow another squash there. And we like to grow corn, and I like the winter squash, those
Butternut.
ones. And I grow those in between the corn. And it keeps the roots of the corn cooler. It shades the roots so it doesn't dry out so much. And it helps the corn to grow.
And I think you grew a dried bean in there as well, right?
Yes, you can also grow beans in there.
And
so
that
there's
helps.
different ways that you can use your soil and get the maximum from your ground.
Yeah. So you can see that on 1 acre, you can grow a lot.
Yes.
We haven't even showed the nut trees, but he has how many nut trees?
I've got altogether, I've got the 2 almond bushes, and then I have 4 heart nut trees. Now we're going to take a look at those.
Okay.
Okay, now we've walked over here, and this is what you call a heart nut tree. I've got 4 of these, and you cannot grow the English walnut here. In Holland we had an English walnut tree, and walnuts are very good for the brain, and I tell you, I need all the help I can get as I grow older. So, but they say that the heart nut, now I haven't had any fruit yet, it takes 8 years, and I believe I'm at my 8th year this year. I hope to get some nuts this year. And they say the heart nut is very similar to your walnut tree. I went with the heart nut, and I think that we'll get a harvest, if not this year, next year. And I'm going to enjoy those. Good protein. So now you know a little bit about what we can do in gardening. I hope that will help you a little bit, and I'll say goodbye.